Emma Schmidt was born in the late 19th century in the United States into a deeply religious Catholic family. From an early age, her life was shaped by strict discipline and rigid beliefs. Her father, in particular, was known to be extremely controlling and harsh. He enforced religion not as comfort, but as fear. Emma's childhood was quiet, isolated, and heavily restricted, leaving little room for normal emotional growth. As a young girl, Emma showed no signs of unusual behavior. She attended church regularly, followed household rules, and lived a life that, from the outside, appeared ordinary. But beneath the surface, she struggled with constant pressure, fear of punishment, and emotional suppression. Those close to her later described her as withdrawn, anxious, and unusually sensitive to stress. When Emma entered her teenage years, her behavior began to change. She started experiencing episodes of intense anger and emotional instability. She complained of disturbing thoughts and a deep sense of dread that had no clear cause. At times, she reported feeling repulsed by religious objects, despite being raised devoutly Catholic. Her reactions were confusing and frightening. She would become physically ill in the presence of holy symbols. Church services caused her distress instead of comfort. These reactions were not constant, but they occurred often enough to alarm her family. At first, her condition was treated as a medical or psychological issue. Doctors were consulted. Emma was diagnosed with nervous disorders common to the time, including what was then called melancholia or hysteria. Treatments were attempted, but none provided lasting improvement. As Emma grew older, her condition worsened. Her episodes became more intense and unpredictable. She experienced violent mood swings, sudden physical weakness, and periods of extreme agitation. Witnesses later reported that her voice would sometimes change during these episodes, becoming harsh and unfamiliar. Emma claimed she was being tormented by unseen forces. She described hearing voices and feeling constant internal pressure. These experiences deeply disturbed her, and she expressed fear that something was controlling her thoughts and actions. Medical explanations continued to fall short. Despite treatment, rest, and care, her condition did not improve. Over time, her reactions to religious symbols became more extreme. She could not tolerate prayers, sacred texts, or holy water without intense distress. As Emma Schmidt's condition continued to worsen, her family began to lose confidence in medical explanations alone. Over the years, doctors had offered different diagnoses and treatments, but none brought lasting improvement. Emma's symptoms did not follow a predictable medical pattern. At times, she appeared calm and functional, yet certain situations caused sudden and intense reactions that could not be explained easily. What troubled her family most was how specifically Emma reacted to religious objects and practices. She showed extreme distress when prayers were spoken, recoiled at the sight of holy items, and became visibly agitated in churches. These reactions were not random or emotional outbursts. They were consistent and repeated, occurring every time she encountered religious symbols. Doctors who observed her noted that her responses did not resemble the mental illnesses commonly recognized during that era. Eventually, Emma's family turned to the Catholic Church for guidance. Church officials did not immediately assume anything supernatural. Instead, priests observed her behavior over time, consulted with medical professionals, and carefully documented her reactions. They wanted to rule out known psychological or neurological explanations before taking any further steps. What made Emma's case unusual was that her reactions were specific, controlled by clear triggers, and did not change even after long periods of observation. In 1912, an initial attempt at exorcism was performed with caution. This early effort appeared to help briefly, and Emma showed signs of improvement. However, the relief did not last. Her symptoms returned, sometimes more intensely than before. Over the following years, Emma struggled to live a stable life. She found it difficult to maintain relationships, hold steady work, or experience long periods of peace. By the late 1920s, those responsible for her care believed that her condition had reached a critical point. Medical treatment had failed to provide lasting relief, and her suffering had continued for decades. After further consultation and careful review of her case history, the church authorized a formal exorcism. This decision was not made lightly. It was approached as a serious, structured, and fully documented procedure, intended to understand and address what could no longer be explained through medicine alone. In 1928, Emma Schmidt was transported to a secluded convent in Earling, Iowa. The decision to conduct the ritual there was deliberate. The location offered privacy, security, and a controlled environment away from public attention. It also ensured that the process could be carried out without interruption or external pressure. The exorcism was led by Father Theophilus Riesinger, a priest known for his experience with similar cases. He was not alone. Other clergy assisted him, and several nuns were present as witnesses. Their role was not ceremonial. They were there to observe, record, and ensure that every step was documented accurately. The process extended over several weeks rather than days. Sessions were scheduled, monitored, and paused when necessary. Nothing was rushed. Detailed written records were kept throughout, describing Emma's condition, responses, and behavior during each stage. These documents remain the primary source of information about the case today and are often cited as some of the most thorough records ever produced regarding an exorcism. During the sessions, Emma reportedly experienced intense emotional and physical strain. Observers noted resistance to prayers and sudden shifts in mood and demeanor. At times, her expressions and reactions appeared markedly different from her usual state. These changes were considered significant because they occurred repeatedly and under similar circumstances. Crucially, these observations were not based on a single individual's account. Multiple witnesses, including clergy who were educated, disciplined, and trained to remain skeptical, independently recorded what they saw. Medical professionals were also consulted, and no conclusions were drawn casually. Each detail was written down with care, not as sensational claims, but as factual observations. It is this level of documentation, consistency, and oversight that has caused the Emma Schmidt case to remain one of the most discussed and debated religious cases in modern history. Whether viewed through a spiritual, psychological, or historical lens, the records stand as a rare example of prolonged, structured observation during an event that continues to challenge clear explanation. As the exorcism continued, gradual changes became noticeable. Emma's episodes began to decrease in frequency. When reactions occurred, they were less intense than before. Witnesses noted that her resistance weakened over time, and she was able to endure longer periods of prayer without distress. Toward the final stages, a significant shift was observed. Emma appeared mentally clearer, more responsive, and less fearful. Her behavior stabilized, and she showed signs of physical exhaustion rather than agitation. According to the written records, the exorcism concluded with Emma appearing calm and present, able to engage in prayer without visible suffering. In the weeks following the conclusion, Emma's improvement remained consistent. She did not return to her previous state of distress. Those who knew her afterward described her as quiet and reserved but stable. She lived without the episodes that had dominated much of her earlier life. There were no public declarations or dramatic announcements. The church treated the outcome cautiously, focusing on Emma's well-being rather than publicity. Over time, her case became known through documentation rather than storytelling. Emma Schmidt lived the remainder of her life peacefully, maintaining her faith without fear. Her story remains one of the most carefully recorded cases associated with exorcism, not because of sensational claims, but because of the level of observation, restraint, and documentation involved. The case of Emma Schmidt stands apart from many other alleged possession stories because of its documentation. Multiple witnesses, written records, and careful oversight make it one of the most credible cases studied by the Catholic Church. It later became a major influence on religious discussions of possession and exorcism, and is widely believed to have inspired elements of the Exorcist novel and film, though those works added fictional elements not present in Emma's real story. Emma Schmidt's story is not one of spectacle, but of suffering, observation, and documentation. It exists at the intersection of faith, psychology, and history. Whether viewed through a religious or psychological lens, her case remains one of the most carefully recorded and debated events of its kind. What makes her story enduring is not fear alone, but the seriousness with which it was approached. No shortcuts were taken, no conclusions were rushed. Every detail was recorded, leaving behind a case that continues to be studied nearly a century later. Emma Schmidt remains a name tied to one of the most significant documented exorcisms in modern history, a case that still raises questions about the limits of medical knowledge, the power of belief, and the mysteries that remain unexplained.